Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Carlos McConney.
Hey there, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. It's a pleasure to join you on this edition of Euromaxx Highlights. Let's get started with a quick glance at today's stories. Smooth as glass. Why sculptors are rediscovering this fragile material. Food turn on. How the food porn craze on the net is affecting restaurants. A man and his castle. What Varberg Castle, the Varberg car, and Martin Luther have in common. The Biennale in Venice is currently underway. Many exhibitions are taking place all around the city. However, for our next report, we want to focus on the use of glass in art. Some artists shy away from glass because its manufacturing process is so difficult to master, and they will always end up with a very delicate material. But now, more artists are exploring the possibilities of glass. We visited an exhibition called Glastress, and here is what we discovered.
Visions in glass. Sculptor Thomas Schütter's pieces are his comment on Germany's ubiquitous garden gnomes. This clump of belts in glass lends the material a surprising elasticity. What appears to be a soft, velvety fabric is woven of glass splinters. Over 30 leading contemporary artists explore glass as a medium at the Biennale in Venice.
Venice has a vast tradition for glasswork, but in the 20th century the art was reduced to decorative purposes. It was no longer a serious endeavor, but more for souvenirs and handicrafts, but not for art. This exhibition aims to show that the material can do so much more.
The goblets by Brazilian artist Vic Muniz play with both tradition and the contemporary. The subtle colors and elaborate details pay tribute to Venetian glass culture on a whole new scale. This is the first time painter Xenia Hausner has ever worked with glass. First, she had to get a sense of the material.
I set up a crime scene here with consciously selected trivial everyday items that might have flown out of a car in a wreck, or that you might find on the kitchen or hotel room floor after a murder. A thermos, an iron, a radio, deliberately mundane objects.
An installation titled Protected Paradise in the Palazzo Franchetti's garden takes a political stance. It consists largely of recycled plastic. It's Belgian artist Koen van Mechelen's take on humankind's drive towards self-destruction.
For me, glass is like life. It is the concept of all the elements. Life is built up water, air, sand, fire. This is really the base of the whole work. It's like the earth who's breaking open like a volcano, who is reacting. And out of this is coming this phoenix. And this phoenix is really talking to us. And for that, you need all the elements of life, and I can see that in glass.
Every piece in Venice's Glass Stress exhibition was made on the island of Murano. The glassblowers here were once famed as the best in their field. Their clientele included royalty. Today, only a few glassblowers are as skilled. It takes years of experience to know when the temperature is just right, so the glass chunks will melt rather than burst, or how to achieve certain colors. 7 years ago, the founders of the Berengo Glass Studio decided to utilize this priceless knowledge and invite artists to experiment with glass for a unique project.
When an artist brings a project to us, we try to understand the idea. It's not always feasible to realize the concept in glass, but we try to strike a balance.
Sometimes it can be a painstaking process, as it was for Austrian artist Erwin Wurm, who would accept no compromises. He had a clear idea of how his objects had to look.
When you specify a form, this is a very precise thing to do, and with glass, somebody else realizes a work after the instructions of some of the artists. That means there is another person in between the work and you and yourself, and that's kind of difficult.
Erwin Wurm's glass sculptures have his signature humorous undertones. For the artists, this project gave them a chance to step outside their comfort zone and work with a new material. The results are often surprising and a highlight at this year's Biennale.
Have you heard of the term food porn? Well, those not familiar with it may think it's some kind of pornography that involves food, but that couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually mouth-watering images of food posted on the internet. Instagram, for example, is flooded with images under the food porn hashtag. Some social media users even attempt to outdo one another with pictures of aesthetically pleasing and often very healthy food. It's a trend that's also influencing the restaurant scene.
Honey lemon chicken, a green smoothie bowl. They all have their minutes of mouth-watering fame on Instagram. Perfectly arranged food photos are trendy on the internet. A favorite subject is bowls, with as many colors as possible. The Daddy Longlegs Cafe in Munich serves them up for real. Food that's both healthy and visually appealing is the main idea.
Our customers have high expectations for these bowls. They have to look nice and be worthy of Instagram. So it's very important for the bowls to look appealing. Some customers pick out lots of toppings just to make them that way. Personally, I've noticed that food has turned into a media experience.
Perfect food arrangements are no longer exclusive to haute cuisine. Patrons everywhere are more demanding and restaurants are reacting. It's ironically called food porn. That's one of the Instagram hashtags that attracts gourmet fans. Food blogger Pauline Bosdorf of Berlin posted her first culinary photo in 2012. Now she has nearly 250,000 followers.
The beautiful arrangement is what makes it click for many people. Who knows what factors come into play when we look at food? I'm sure something more is happening in our bodies, and it's just more fun when an arrangement looks nice. I get the feeling that a whole new value is being attached to food now.
And more effort is going into the preparation. Cupcakes are done up like ornamental cacti and in all colors of the rainbow. These cartoon characters in beef and whipped potatoes are also popular, but a rainbow-colored cheese sandwich raises the question, is it really edible?
Overly elaborate dishes are not for us. We want the foods to preserve their origins. A strawberry ought to remain a strawberry. It should just look nice and be fun to eat.
And it should be healthy. That's part of the trend. Daddy Longlegs bowls include superfood ingredients like the highly prized acai berries and the nutritious Andean grain quinoa. One place to go for vitamin-rich fast food is the Juicery in Berlin. The owner, Sadie Dogmas, mixes smoothies and juices. He may experiment with spirulina and serve it up in test tubes for his adventurous Berlin patrons, but even so, he doesn't like doing things just for show.
We humans are visual creatures, and many establishments try to utilize that. But I'd say that things that don't have any real substance and just work with a superficial aesthetic will disappear from the market relatively fast.
So these rainbow-colored unicorn noodles may be doomed to extinction. But even in the digital age, the old rule still applies. Don't play with your food.
He is known as the King of Waltz, so maybe it's only fitting that he should live in a castle. And Dutch violinist André Gio doesn't just own a castle, but he also owns the world's largest private orchestra. Together with his musicians, he sold more concert tickets than, get this, than Beyoncé. Now, some people find his shows kitschy and pompous, but his extravagant staging is all part of the attraction. We met up with André Rieu at home in Maastricht to find out what inspires him.
André Rieu plays to adoring audiences the world over. But this performance was in his home city of Maastricht. Featuring opulent costumes and lavish backdrops, his concerts are always good for a few surprises.
Every concert we put on is a fresh beginning. We can never just go on autopilot. We always give it our all, and that's what lends us energy. After the concert, then we can bask in our success. Then we need lots of red wine to come back down to earth again.
His colleagues describe him as strict, but say he has a good sense of humour. And he's not only a violinist, he's also the founder and conductor of the world's largest private orchestra, the Johann Strauss Orchestra, which has about 50 musicians.
Listen, the trumpet sounds different this time. Let's hear the other ones. Yes, the other ones sound more Italian.
André Rieu was born in 1949 in Maastricht to a musical family. He began learning violin at the age of 5 and went on to play in a number of Dutch ensembles. The turning point of his career came in 1995 when he performed during half-time at the Champions League final between Bayern Munich and Ajax Amsterdam. Afterwards, his album sales soared.
Strauss & Co. van André Rieu.
Later, the newly anointed King of the Waltz moved into a 15th century castle in Maastricht.
I always wanted to live in a castle. That was always my dream. I read Tintin as a boy, and in one of the books, he and the professor sold an invention and bought a castle with the income. Even then I thought, oh, how lovely, I want to do that too. When you have a dream, you should make it reality. It's the best thing in life, and I try to make my dreams a reality every day.
But as Rieu found out, dreams can go awry. In 2008, he had a replica of Vienna's Schönbrunn Palace built as a backdrop for a global tour. It took more than 200 containers to ship it to Australia.
It was too much, it cost too much, and I went bankrupt. Later, I was here in this very room with the bankers who were saying, what else can we take away with us? But one of them said, no, let him keep performing. That's the only way we'll ever get our money back. I promised my wife I'd never overdo things again.
Nowadays, Rieu's operation is back on its feet again. Last year, he toured on 5 continents. That meant hiring 4 separate teams, each in charge of its own stage backdrop. Rieu designs his own costumes, which are then made to measure in multiple copies. His son, who's also his manager, says it's a far cry from the early days.
I still remember how he used to paint the music stands in our living room 30 years ago. I was 5. Then later, when he started the Johann Strauss Orchestra, around that time, my mother, brother and I made sandwiches for the intermission. Now we travel with 7 chefs.
This summer, André Rieu and his orchestra will tour Chile, Mexico and the US. But first, as every July, Central Maastricht will become a huge open-air concert hall, and the King of the Waltz will hold court for 10 days.
This year, 2017, marks the 500th anniversary of the Reformation, and that's drawing a lot of tourists to the town of Eisenach. So we are taking that opportunity to get to know Eisenach, which is a German town located pretty much in the geographic center of the country. This is where Martin Luther translated the New Testament from Greek into colloquial German in 1521. Varberg Castle is one of the main tourist attractions in the area. And with so many events related to this anniversary, it's the perfect time to learn more about the history of the town.
Everyone who visits Eisenach wants to see Wartburg Castle. For many, it is much more than an 11th century castle. It's both a landmark and a national legend. That's mainly because this is where Martin Luther translated the New Testament while staying at the castle in 1521. A light installation pays tribute to the reformer. His work meant all literate Germans could read the Bible for the first time.
Luther wasn't the first person to translate the Bible, but he did it very well. He translated it from the original Greek instead of Latin.
A special Jubilee exhibition pays tribute to Luther. Over 300 exhibits show how our attitude towards him has repeatedly changed over the past 500 years. Luther, a national hero. Luther, a religious revolutionary. A man who has often sparked controversy.
The
Wartburg exhibition shows 500 years of German history and focuses on Luther and the German people, how the Reformation influenced German history, and how different eras view Luther.
Wartburg Castle looks over the city of Eisenach. Martin Luther lived here as a schoolboy. You encounter the reformer wherever you go. This is the church where he preached. And this is where another famous son of Eisenach was born in 1685, composer Johann Sebastian Bach. The museum shows what Luther and Bach have in common. After World War II, Eisenach was known for its car factory. The East German Wartburg was named after the castle. The 353 was built here for over 20 years and still has a fan following. Marco Röhler is one of them. He takes good care of his Wartburg, which is now 30 years old.
For me, the Wartburg represents car history in Eisenach. Strong links and a feeling of home. I grew up here with this car and this factory.
Cars have been built in Eisenach for over 120 years. Now the city is home to an Opel factory. Tourists can see the collection of automobiles at a special exhibition, including the Wartburg, of course.
The cars had the same name as the castle, and that linked them closely to Eisenach and its castle. The car also stood for the many different aspects of the city, which is both a cultural center and an industrial hub. That was never a contradiction. People breathed in gasoline, so to speak.
Eisenach is also a great place to try some traditional local fare, like the famous dumplings, which are made of 2 parts raw and 1 part boiled potatoes. They are served with a crouton in the middle. They simmer in boiling water until they rise to the surface.
Every family in the region has their own secret recipe for making the dumplings. Everyone makes them differently. Some add condensed milk, others use crème fraîche.
They're served with beef roulades and red cabbage. And here in Eisenach, they're best washed down with a glass of Luther wine, with a view of the Wartburg.
3D printing is not a new concept anymore. On an industrial level, it's been around for about 30 years, but only over the last decade has it made its way into the upper echelons of design. Big names in fashion are now using 3D printers for accessories and high-end jewelry. Museums are also displaying 3D printed items in their collections, including those by German artist Sylvia Weidenbach. She trained in traditional gold and silversmithing, but prefers the possibilities modern technology has to offer.
A 3D printer in action. It's just received the command to print a piece of jewelry. In about 3 hours' time, it will become part of the collection of items designed by German artist Sylvia Weidenbach. Her creations are a result of what she sees in her surroundings, sometimes concrete like coral, or abstract, like a kaleidoscope. Weidenbach studied gold and silversmithing in southern Germany. Up until a few years ago, she only used traditional methods to create certain objects.
I started out with a very classical silversmith training. Right from the start, I learned to work with traditional tools and take the ideas that I had and put them onto paper first and then develop them with original material. These here are traditional tools, a file and so on. And now it's exciting for me to add another tool to my toolbox, such as the Haptic Arm, which gives me even more freedom.
This is the Haptic Arm she's talking about. It's a digital tool used to manipulate virtual objects on the computer. It's similar to a clay sculpting tool.
I can feel this mass or object that you see here. I can add material or cut it out or adjust it. I can determine is it a soft material or easy to press through with these various tools. So this for me is really an interesting way to work.
Weidenbach is currently artist in residence at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. In November, one of her 3D creations, a jewelry box, will be displayed among the Gilbert collection of decorative arts.
Sylvia for us was an obvious choice because she reacts so sensitively to historic material, but she's not a historicist. She takes inspiration from the objects and then creates new and incredibly exciting work.
For me, these pieces are a huge inspiration for their detailed precision, the way the artists treated the materials, and for their technical innovation. At the time these were created, porcelain would have been something totally new, and that's where I see lots of parallels with what I'm doing.
In the meantime, a growing number of fashion labels such as Alexander McQueen, A.F. van der Forst, and Acris are using 3D printers for accessories. Shoes are also slowly making a footprint. Dutch designer Iris van Herpen incorporated 3D boots into a collection created with architect Rem Koolhaas. Back in her studio, Weidenbach prepares to print another piece. Of course, all of this technology depends on updated software and a good internet connection. Any lapses in either will result in a breakdown of the process. After 3 hours, the prototype for a bracelet is finally finished.
I think the hype around 3D printing is over. The technology has been around for more than 30 years, and artists have been using it for about 10 years. What's exciting now is how material will be used, how it will be refined or combined with other materials. I'm also very interested in metal printing and applying it more exclusively.
Auf eine größere Exklusivität zu treiben. With her 3D jewelry, Sylvia Weidenbach manages to represent today's zeitgeist.
that will be it for today. If you've missed any of our recent shows, make sure to visit our webpage where they will be available free of charge for your viewing pleasure at any time. You can also join our social media pages on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And you can even follow me. Yes, if you want to know what I'm up to. So go ahead and follow me. Okay, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'll see you soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.